Yikes. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all band. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat, we trust.
You sound scared.
It's about have the guts, we're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome into 5 on the Floor live on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick at 5 Reasons Sports. I got Greg Sylvander. You can follow me at Greg Sylvander. And now he's considered a good luck charm. We got Major Passons on the postgame show. Typically, when Major's on the postgame show, we know they're losing, but actually the last 2, they've actually won. So we might invite Major back after this, but we'll be evaluating his performance over the next 21 and a half minutes, and we'll let you know afterwards. We are taking your comments here in the chat. We do this live. Of course, we put it on the postgame feed afterwards. Alex and Brady were at the game tonight. I was not. Appreciate Alejandro Villegas for filling in. Check out the other content that went on the YouTube channel. And again, we'll get some of the comments up here as we go. We'll also get to our sponsors. Let's start here. Let's just do it. Player of the game. Roll it.
And now it's time for the A-Aggressive Insurance Player of the Night, sponsored by our friend Lynette. You can find her at insurancebylynette.com. That's with 2 N's and 2 T's, insurancebylynette.com. If you need car insurance, renter's insurance, homeowner's insurance, or any other type of insurance, she's the person to go to. Based in Lauderhill, she services the entire Tri-County area here in South Florida, and she will make sure to get you the best deal. She'll probably talk to you about the Heat while you're at it. Reach out to her, insurancebylynette.com. And now, the player of the game.
All right, the question always becomes with Jimmy Butler, can he still elevate? Can he still do it against the better teams? I know Dallas didn't have Luka tonight, but that didn't make their defense any worse. And we've seen that that Jimmy has struggled against Dallas in recent years. He actually averaged only 13 points against them last year in 2 games. Tonight, 33 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, 17 field goal attempts. He made 11 of them. 16 free throws, made 11. You'd like to see him make 12 or 13, but just getting to the line consistently is the big thing. Also had, I believe, a block, a couple of steals, was more active in the passing lanes defensively. And we will get to the play of the game in a minute. And on that one, obviously he featured prominently. Probably should have had a chance to win it in regulation if the officials gave him the call that they should have. But let's get to Jimmy, Greg, sort of in the aggregate tonight, because we talk about this. It's like, all right, how far can this team really go? And is it worth keeping him around if he may not be here next season, if you really don't have any upside to this team? And then he does this tonight, and he's coming off another strong performance. And, of course, it's coming after he gets rest, right? The last time was he was out, nursing the ankle, comes back after a few days off. This one, you have this sort of Shakira's hip slide break where you weren't supposed to, Shakira was supposed to perform at the arena. She didn't. And so you have, Jimmy getting 5 days off again, comes out looking fresh again. I mean, it's still in him. It's just not in him all the time, right?
Yeah, and I think that maybe that changes the calculation of how you approach this. And as much as Pat preached availability, maybe it's about availability, but just being at full strength during that availability, because you can't deny when he gets rest, which favors playoff basketball, mind you. I know it is a lot more aggressive, but you do get days off in between games. It's interesting to see him come out with basically a similar stat line on even, more shots, but just as good efficiency 2 nights in a row. And the 9 rebounds, the 6 assists, he just was the catalyst for so much of the good work around the rim. He was awesome. And so this is the thing. Like when you look at his season averages heading into tonight's game, he's averaging almost 18 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, on 21% 3-point shooting and 50% field goal shooting. You have to ask yourself, how many more of the Jimmy Butler games like we saw tonight are you going to get along the way here versus those averages I just mentioned? Because those averages are not good enough for this basketball team. They're not talented enough. They're not going to go anywhere unless Jimmy is the type of player that we saw tonight, that we saw against Philadelphia, and that hopefully we see going forward. But the thing, like you mentioned, is when we know it's in there, it's hard to bail on the idea of Jimmy Butler leading this team and seeing how far they can go.
And Major, the thing about him tonight was he wasn't perfect, but he was relentless. Like I'm seeing in the chat here, all the missed bunnies. It wasn't just him, but he missed free throws. He missed a couple of those were bunnies. He had at least 3 that should have probably been N1 finishes, one way or the other. Either the official should have called a foul when he made one, or he should have finished probably 2 years ago he would have finished on a play that he did get fouled. But he just kept going. And I think that is what we wanted to see more of last year. But how do you balance this? Because it's like we talked about, like they're in these weird positions with all these players. Pat wants him to play more, but if he plays more, you're going to get less of this, probably. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then it's like we talk about Tyler's great start to the season, but if Tyler's your best offensive player, you're probably not really going anywhere. And then with Bam, there are all these caveats too, because you're expecting him to anchor the defense, and yet sometimes the offense has suffered. So there's just no perfect situation with any of this. How would you handle, in light of what you saw the last couple of games, how would you handle Jimmy the rest of the year?
I mean, I've always been a guy that believes if you have Jimmy Butler on your team, you can make a run when it matters the most because he does get more rest and because his game is more playoff basketball-esque. And we've seen that almost every year he's been in Miami that he's been healthy, right? As far as like how you manage that through a regular season, especially when a team really needs the best of Jimmy Butler, I've said it on post games in the past and other pods. I think it's more about situational in games. Now, today he was exceptional almost from the jump, right? But I've contributed it to like how LeBron James does nowadays. LeBron isn't the same player when he was on the Heat, right? But he can be that for moments, especially in the biggest moments. And I think that's how you manage that for an 82 game season is in the biggest moments. You need Jimmy to be what we call, quote unquote, playoff Jimmy. He needs to be that bully ball. He needs to be relentless. Maybe not from the first quarter on, but whenever it matters most or whenever they're letting up a big run, they need Jimmy to just take over. Maybe they just need to piss off Jimmy and get someone mad and on the other team and just attack him every game, because that is definitely a thing. And we talked about all playback, how if there's someone on the other team he hates, he's in for it. So maybe that's the secret. Maybe that's what we need to do.
Well, and Najee Marshall was on the other side and was actually taunting the Heat bench as he was running past Jimmy. And then Spo took Jimmy out, which I was like, no, you don't take Jimmy out there. No. That's where Jimmy gets, most, engaged. We used to see it with Dwayne. With Dwayne, it was you made him bleed. Like Danilo Gallinari learned that. You don't make Dwayne bleed. Well, you don't make Jimmy mad. And, I was like, okay, he's taking him out there. That's odd. And then also, it's also not just players he hates. It's also players he seems to have these sort of friendly rivalries with. Mm-hmm. We saw it in the Philly game where it's okay. He's got Kyle, he's got Caleb over there, and Embiid. Those are not guys he hates. Those are guys he has friendly rivalries with. But then, and then tonight it's Kyrie. He has a relationship with Kyrie, and you can see he wanted to go back at him. Now, he didn't defend Kyrie all the way down the stretch. They had a bunch of different guys. They played zone, and ultimately Jimmy got him for a couple of possessions and then sort of let him switch off in the zone. But it's not like Jimmy's taking on the toughest defensive assignment like maybe he did a few years ago. I want to get to the play of the game here because there's a lot of stuff in the chat, and there's other things I want to get to tonight, which is particularly the way the rotations worked late. For those who missed the game, Haywood Highsmith left because he was sick, apparently. So he was not available at the end of the game. Duncan Robinson had 5 fouls, but he did play some at the end. But the third leading minutes getter tonight was Pelle Larsson. And I want some time to get into that. But I don't want to not give Jimmy full credit tonight because he deserves it. So let's get to the play of the game.
And now it's time for the X-Ray of the Play of the Day, brought to us by our friends over at Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services. Nelson and his team will bring the x-ray equipment and the staffing to you. If you work in a hospital or a medical office, get a consultation today at c-armanstaffing.com or give them a call at 561-891-9620. Their fleet of trucks at your service. Again, it's mobile C. Arman Staffing Services, 561-891-9620. And now, the x-ray of the play of the day.
This is what I liked about it. There was forced movement. They need to get movement on these plays at the end of the game. They cannot be stagnant and then end up, no matter who it is, whether it's Jimmy, Tyler, Bam, any of their players, Duncan, it cannot be a situation where it's a step back, have to force something. Obviously, Terry, if he's ever in there in those situations. But the fact that they had Jimmy, Spo had Jimmy starting basically like 3/4 court and getting a running start into a pass and a finish, particularly the way that he was seeking contact the entire game, Greg. It was a very, very smart play call. Now, that should have been the end of the game, right?
You're
he got
damn
fouled.
right. Because, it was a beautiful play call out of the timeout. Duncan Robinson made a great pass to get it to Jimmy up in the air, but he got fouled. And he should have been shooting free throws with, 4 seconds left it would have been, or maybe less than that. I don't know how it would have, but there wouldn't have been much time left, and you would have had a chance to go up one. So I think that they missed that call there, but Jimmy converted. It was absolutely the play of the game, and it's, again, it reinforces Jimmy still got it.
Well, again, it reinforces that he still got it if you get it to him in the right situations. I think asking him to play hero ball is not where you want to be. And this isn't just a Jimmy thing. This was Dwayne at the end too. We got so sick of watching the Dwayne step backs in the last 2 or 3 years of his career. And because, there wasn't sort of the creativity or the athleticism on his part at that stage to get him into the situations that he was previously. But again, I don't want Jimmy taking step backs. I want Jimmy. What makes Jimmy great is his ability to play angles, his relentlessness, his ability to take contact, and all that play encapsulated all of it. I just thought it was well designed and a good plan there. All right, I want to pivot to something else here though. Okay, because when we talked about this season, we talked about certain guys growing into roles, and it's different guys than we thought. I think we're at this point now. So I'm going to go through some minute distribution here, okay, for tonight's game. Tyler had played a game-high 42 minutes. I was 8 of 25 from the field, 1 of 10 from 3. He had a bad shooting night. He still had 11 rebounds, 5 assists.
Iron Man, 42 minutes, not fragile, Tyler Hero.
Exactly, and that's growth, okay? To me, that he had a bad shooting night, took some bad shots, okay, he definitely did. But again, played a strong floor game, cleaned up the defensive boards, did still find people, only had 1 turnover, okay, against 5 assists. So he didn't make a ton of mistakes in that way. The Heat, by the way, the entire game had 9 turnovers, which for an overtime game is pretty damn good. Okay, Jimmy played 37 minutes. Next in minutes played was Pelle Larsson with 36 off the bench, tied with Bam. Then Alec Burks with 31. Nobody else had 20. Jaquez 19, Love 19. Love played instead of Bam in some of those late game situations. Haywood 19 would have played more, obviously, if he hadn't gotten sick. Duncan had 18, probably would have played more if he hadn't picked up the 5 fouls. And then I looked down on this, and Jovic played 6. Nowhere, no Josh Richardson. Rozier was still out with a foot injury. Major, what should we look at this as a good thing or a bad thing at this point? That you have Jovic and Jaquez available. We've made a lot of these 2 guys as their last 2 first-round picks. I don't want to talk about where right now. Okay, I really don't. That's not where we're at. All right, Jovic and Jaquez is a different story, though. They were supposed to be a breakout this year, and Larson earned the minutes. He earned the minutes. He earned every single one of them. We'll get to Burks in a second, and I don't think Burks should ever be playing behind Jay Rich at this point. And I've said that for 3 weeks. But the Larson part ahead of, is this just rust with Jaquez and inability to find a role for Jovic? Because is this positive or negative?
I mean, it's a little bit of both. I think Jaquez is still a very good player. I think his is more rust than anything. Me and Greg were talking about this right before we started, but we talk about how Jaquez always goes 1,000 miles per hour, but even last year he was posting up and backing down people more, and he's just not really doing that as much this year. I don't know if his groin is still bothering him in those situations or something. He doesn't look completely like himself. He's not making as great of decisions as he was last year, which I feel like that will even out. On Jovic, this is just a really weird situation to figure out for me this year, because I actually thought for the first couple games with the starters, Jovic was actually pretty good. And then he's just like declined every game almost, it seems like. When he first went to the bench, pretty good. And then today he was not good. He only played 6 minutes. He's not been great a lot of recent games. That's a negative. Now, Larson is a plug and play to the definition. I think he's a rotation player similar to Jaquez last year, where you were just like, you have to find a way to get this guy minutes. He's always contributing. He was actually, when you talked about Jimmy not guarding Kyrie down the stretch, Larson was doing a lot of the defense down the stretch. That's something this team really needs. You have Alec Burks, who every time he plays deserves more minutes. So I think overall it's a net positive, especially for a regular season with an older team. And we know the Heat every single year, they have a lot of missed games. You need a lot of guys that contribute and a lot of vets that can play different roles. I think the Heat really do have that. Where you could get concerned is maybe in the playoffs when rotations lessen, and you're expecting like Jaquez to be that super six man, and he's not there. That really weakens a team if you don't have that upper end bench players. That's what weakens the team is in the playoffs, not necessarily the regular season, at least in my opinion. So I think you can spin this either which way. I'm going to shockingly choose to look at it positively and say they have a lot of guys that can contribute. And I think it'll sort of figure itself out, at least in the terms of Jaquez in the future. Jovic is the one that I'm a little bit more disappointed in, because I think he has a lot of tools that could really be useful for this team. It's just not panning out.
Greg, I saw Lynette's comment in here, and I think this is a key one, and I want to get to the positivity of Larson's performance today, and because that kid does everything right. He just does. Like, he is plug and play in all ways. You put him on anybody. The weak side rebounding with him. We talk about them not being able to get a defensive rebound. He cleaned that up a couple times tonight where I thought they didn't have a chance to get a defensive rebound. And now we're seeing David Rivera-Pele over Jaime. And I talked about this on Playback a little bit, that is it crazy to think that in a year or two that Larson may be better than Jaime? I don't think we're there yet, but I think that we're talking about role, right? And it feels like with Jaquez, and some of this may be coming back from the injury and rust and all that, but it feels like Spo has to kind of find a place for him, and that's weird for me because all we talked about last year was you plug him in and he's fine. Mm-hmm. I feel that applies to Larson more. And Lynette's comment here, Jaime's been scouted and he's offering no counters. I think that's a real thing, because we talked about that last year. Like, okay, he seems to have a counter for everything, but once they took away his spin move, particularly in transition, like Jaime only has one speed.
Yeah.
And he's going to have to develop another speed at this point, and it has not happened. And we can say it was the groin injury last year, but we're still not seeing it.
And the shooting has to improve. Like, that's the other part of this, is that he has to either develop those counters or develop a knockdown shot. And we haven't seen either one of those things. And it's tough because he's kind of the player that last year he fit in so smoothly because he was so often subbing in for an absent Jimmy Butler. And in a perfect world this year, you don't have an absent Jimmy Butler. They didn't have one tonight. You've seen that his minutes dwindled. Some of the listeners in the chat, like you said, are calling for Pele over Jaime. In what world would we have thought that was even viable? So I think the positive spin on it is that I think Jaime eventually figures out his role, and I also think he'll get the opportunity because inevitably players will get injured and they'll find chances. But for Pele to be a player that anyone would even consider to be on Jaime's level, even in his role, means that he's ahead of schedule. So that's another good thing to take from this stretch here, where he started to get more and more involved. And I think that it's safe to say that maybe Josh and that experiment might be put on the shelf for a little bit now.
Okay, Major, that's the bigger thing to me. So, and I understand what people are saying, that, maybe Pelly's upside is not higher than Jaime's, and I'm not saying I'm there. I'm not. I'm really not. We got a long way to go with Jaime. He hasn't been totally healthy. I do think it's easier to plug and play Pella right now than it is to plug and play Jaime. And because what I'm looking for is, you don't have Rozier in there, so essentially, like, you're basically telling Jaime, like, it's your bench. Like, you run this thing. We're going to get you those opportunities. And then tonight, we really didn't see it again. He kind of just drove into traffic a couple of times without a plan. And it felt like last year he was able to kind of figure it out on the fly, and he couldn't. And he could. This year, it doesn't feel like he can do that. But the Josh thing is the more immediate thing here. So you didn't have Rozier playing tonight, but he didn't play Richardson anyway. Burks played well from the jump, okay? And I'll give you Burks' numbers. 31 minutes, 5 of 9 overall, 4 of 8 from 3. Had one of the 2 free throws late, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, plus 11, a steal, a block. I mean, he doesn't look like just a spot-up shooter. He's playing like a basketball player. Like, he's doing the right things. They're trusting him to handle the ball in a lot of situations. I don't know that he would have gone to Josh in the second half, even if Burks didn't play well. But Major, and I love Josh. I do. I love what he's brought to this franchise, all that kind of stuff. But this is not – suppose given the benefit of the doubt to guys over the years that he likes, and I understand it, and he promised him an opportunity and the minimum contract and all that, but it's just been apparent now for weeks, or ever since Josh has kind of come back from the shoulder injury, Burks offers more and Larson offers more. So even with Rozier coming back, I can't see a role for Josh. Do you think he's going to still try to force it?
Maybe. I think that's a terrible answer for all the viewers, right? And the listeners. It is a long season, and we know Spo. It is his greatest strength. It can be his greatest weakness. He is stubborn, right? And he loves Josh, like you said, and he tends to play the players that he likes, whether good or bad at times. I think it is a good sign that there was no Terry and Josh didn't play. And I think it's kind of unfortunate in Josh's defense. Like, he had surgery on his shooting shoulder, if I remember right. And he's trying to come back. Not really a great time. And then he's not playing great. The team's not doing great. He's just an easy guy to pile on. So I think it's kind of a perfect storm to kind of whittle Josh away. That's what I would do. And I've been one of Josh's biggest supporters his whole career. Like, grew up in Tennessee, watched a bunch of Tennessee basketball. I loved we drafted Josh. Loved him. We traded him for Jimmy. But it's like kind of got to that point, right, where you're just like, we got to kind of move on, because you're seeing Larson play really well. You're seeing Burks every time he's in the game. It's like, this guy needs to be playing. Someone's got to lose minutes, and it should be the guy that's not playing great and not taking advantage of all of his opportunities. There's not really something that Josh offers that someone else can't give you, at least in enough of a space that Josh can make up for with other stuff, right? Like, Burks is probably not supposed to be as good of a defender as Josh, but Burks' offense is 1,000 times better than Josh, right? So it's just, don't think there's a scenario where Josh should be playing, but I think Josh will play in some games. I don't think he's going to shelve him personally, but permanently. But I think at some point, Spo's going to want to try to find something resembling a 9-man rotation if everybody's healthy. And it doesn't mean he'll stick to it all the time. He may continue to rotate the 9th guy, but there does come a point in the locker room where, if someone is clearly outplaying someone else and the coach is still leaning towards the guy who's getting outplayed, where it becomes problematic, even if it's not spoken publicly. I don't know how you can watch the way that Burks has played when he's gotten his opportunities this year and the way that Josh Richardson has played and make any kind of case for Josh playing. There's no case to be made, right, Greg? I mean, it's
definitely not. And especially not Pele either. Like, so you're at a point where you tried that. Hopefully, maybe he gets another opportunity at some point and with a fresh mind can go back out there. And the biggest thing with Josh, I feel like, is that he just never saw his shot go in, and it was missing the same way every time so badly that just is deflating. So maybe he comes back in and gets a little bit of a spark, but for now, he's on the shelf, and I think that they go with these other guys, which I think is good for them. They need – Burks has been nothing but solid every time he's played, and Pele obviously is flashing. So I'm with you on this is kind of the end of the road for Josh for now.
Yeah, I know. I feel a little validated about the Burks signing because I liked it at the time just because we saw what he did in the postseason last year, and I know everything was falling apart with the Knicks. But he's been a 40% three-point shooter over 4 years. Like he's just a professional shooter who is not bad in other areas. He's not great, but he's passable in all those areas. He's not going to make mistakes, and this team just cannot afford mistakes. And you see again tonight, they didn't have a true point guard, right? No Rozier. Josh is not a true point guard, but he's one of the closest things they have. And they only turned the ball over 9 times in an overtime game. They don't, you know what I'm saying? Like they'll find ways. They have guys who take care of the ball for the most part. I mean, Tyler even had only the 1 turnover tonight, even though he didn't shoot well. And I just can't see the validation for not playing Burks at this point if he and Josh are both healthy. All right, a couple of other smaller things, and then we'll get to defending the house segment. Bam. I just want to say this one more time. Shoot the corner 3. I know he airballed it at the end. I get it. But I prefer – and there was – and he made one from the top tonight, which he didn't think about. He just shot it. But the reason I like the corner 3 for him is because most cases he will think less. And the ball comes to him and it just goes up. It's not a lot of decisions to be made where he's thinking, should I pass? Should I get Duncan on a dribble handoff? Should I do this? Should I do that? No. The ball comes in the corner and it seems like, at least except for the one at the end, which I probably jinxed on playback, he seems like he gets into rhythm in those situations. He was outplayed by Lively tonight, though. Could we be fair about that?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, 19 and 11, Lively finished with 14 and 13, but there were moments where Lively got the best of him at the rim. You know, when we talk about defending the house, and we'll get to that segment, there was a moment where Bam really got blocked in a way that you don't see happen often. The one thing with Bam I'll say is that over the last 5 games, he has not shot worse than 50% from 3. So let's hope that this is a thing that he can build upon.
Yeah. Tonight, 3 of 6 from 3, 8 of 20 overall. It's more the stuff at the rim that's problematic. 5 of 14 on 2s tonight. He was a +3, 19, 10, and 5. Lively was 14 and 11, by the way, 7 of 11 shooting from the field. And, one more thing on this. You see again tonight how integral Haywood is to everything that they do. Like they got to keep that guy healthy. And I mean, he's sick tonight, so it's a different deal, but they got to find, I still think, even if Larson to me looks like a pretty good defender, he competes. Like I said, they put him on Kyrie at the end. The level of trust that they give him at the end of the games, his willingness to seek contact, his sort of attitude about these things, he's just been a great fit for them so far. But they're honestly,
1 short still.
They're 1 short. They're 1 short. Like people are talking about, they need another scorer. They need 1 more defender on this team. Like it's Bam and it's Haywood and Jimmy's not really taking on those assignments a lot. And I don't know that they want him to take on those assignments. Right. So, well, maybe it is Kashad. Maybe they'll take a look at Kashad as they go forward. All right. So right now they're at 500. Let's go to defending the house.
And now it's time for our Defending the House segment, sponsored by our friends over at The Real Estate Shop. You can find them at realestateshopfl.com. That's with 2 P's and an E, realestateshopfl.com, or at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram. This is Javier Iglesias and Amanda Martin. They help buyers and sellers in real estate. They're nimble and protective of their clients. They service the entire Tri-County area. That's Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties with a proven on-market strategy. The Real Estate Shop sellers earn the most money in the shortest time frame because Amanda and Javier have a deep understanding of the local market. So check them out. Again, it's at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram, realestateshopfl.com, or give them a call at 954-268-9812. And now, who defended the house?
Well, Spencer did what he did because without Spencer Dinwiddie, the Heat probably don't win this game. Spencer Dinwiddie did the best possible job of defending the Mavericks against themselves. Tonight, he was 1 of 12 from the floor, 0 of 9 from 3, and yet was given free rein to take that shot at the end there. Just a horribly inefficient performance.
When did he fall off a cliff? I missed that.
It happened about 3 years ago, and he was always very engaging on social media, and so fans liked him and all that. But he really can't play anymore. You also got a 2 of 8 from Quentin Grimes. Who, remember when Quentin Grimes was the piece that the Knicks didn't want to include for Donovan Mitchell? Yeah. Maxi Kleber was 0 of 4 tonight. Jaden Hardy was 0 of 3. Kleber. Yeah, I mean, essentially, these guys all kept Najee Marshall from stealing this game. And the Heat, whatever they do, we were talking about this stuff, like Najee Marshall's going to be the new Heat fan target, right? Yeah. Except Jimmy will never play with him. But tonight, he went 8 of 16, 20 points. But overall, I thought the Heat's defense, again, a lot of it was Dinwiddie missing. But you're talking about 42-25 splits. You'll take it. Gave up some points tonight, but you did enough defensively. And that kept them in the game because in the first half, the Heat did score 56, but they didn't shoot the ball particularly well. They got to the line, slowed it down a little bit. This was very much a sort of Jimmy drain the life out of you game, and they managed to escape by doing it. People are saying to talk about Kevin Love. I'll say this about Kevin. Did not shoot the ball well tonight. 3 of 10, 3 of 7 from 3, which you'll take that. But the 11 rebounds plus 10, and he just – look, I said this on playback. I think if you ask Jimmy Butler, the one guy he likes playing with the most on this entire team, it's likely Kevin Love. He just looks so comfortable in his minutes with Kevin Love, and Brady has harped on that. And it's one of the reasons that Kevin is still here. Jimmy wants him here because they play off of each other, and you saw in some of those late game situations, Kevin's on the floor, so they got to keep him healthy too. I'm not saying that he's going to be integral in every playoff series. There may be some matchups he doesn't work in, like we saw with Boston last year. But they got to keep Kevin out there, and obviously he was dealing with a personal situation before. But I just mean generally keep him healthy. And people are mentioning the rebounds for sure. Absolutely, the rebounds. Kuzma hits that. Getting that, and they got rebounding from a bunch of different people tonight. It wasn't just him. 11 from Tyler on an off shooting night. 10 from Bam. Like I said, outplayed by Lively, I thought, but he did give you 10 rebounds. 9 rebounds from Jimmy, including 3 offensive. 11 from Kevin. And Haywood had 5 before he went out. So they did just enough rebounding tonight that they weren't bludgeoned on the boards by a team that has bludgeoned them in the past. All right, thanks to Major. Speaking of bludgeon, don't hurt Major tonight. 2-0 in their last 2. They got a streak when he's on the post-game show. Thanks to Greg. Thanks to Brady, Alex, Alejandro for handling everything on site. We'll have more content for you. If you missed the Dolphin game, got a post-game show here as well. And also they did a Kane show to wrap up the weekend. You can check that out as well here on the YouTube channel. Have a good one, everybody.